Hello, everyone, and welcome to Divide and Conquer, Season 2. We're named as such because of our intent. What is our intent? We are a group of sport and performance psychology consultants here at Fort Polk, Louisiana, and each episode we pose a question or issue related to resilience and or performance enhancement that we as a group will conquer through our individual answers. And you'll find out pretty quickly our perspectives and stances are often divided. So we hope you enjoy our take or takes on today's question, which is, why do a lot of New Year's resolutions tend to fall through? Or not fall through?
Sure, why not?
Sure, okay.
Fail.
I'll go with that.
Let's put it on.
Yeah. But we are also a part of the Army Resilience Directory, which you can find on Facebook and Twitter at Army Resilience. Almost forgot that part. So I'll first go around introducing everybody before we take turns addressing the question. So my name's Diego, like always. In front of me is Coach Jess, again without a whistle or clipboard, but it's okay. And then next to Coach Jess, we have Marius. And then to my immediate left, we have John Pine. John Pine. Sean Pine. So one of the things I saw when looking up like actual research, but the top reason that was listed as to why people continuously or tend to fail their New Year's resolutions is because their goals are not often stated clearly enough. They are too vague, too undefined, too non-specific, to the point that how would anyone know when they would have achieved their goal? So, for example, if someone's goal was to beatbox better, A, how do you establish a baseline? B, how would you know whether you have gotten better, and what does better look like in very specific, concrete terms? So is it being able to hold a continuous flow for about a minute or so? Or is it being able to be creative with specific, rhythmic beats or something to begin with? Something that's much more specific than just learning how to beatbox better. As opposed to leaving it at that, there's too much room for interpretation that can constantly change as progression is made towards that non-specific goal. So the goalposts, I guess, for whether or not someone is actually achieving their goal are constantly shifting, and there's no real way to understand if progress is being made or if it's not being made, if there's any type of being stagnant or something like that. And, to me that makes sense, because you always see like a lot of the common, at least I see on Facebook sometimes, a lot of the common ones are like, I'm going to treat myself better this year. And it's like, well, what does that even mean? And like, does it mean, saying nicer things to yourself? Does it mean buying more, cool things for yourself? What does that mean? Yeah, treat yourself. But as you can see, there's a lot of subjectivity to be injected in those types of goals. And, as laudable and as well-intentioned they might be, there's too much left to the unknown that will be swallowed up by time. Isn't that poetic?
I mean, I agree. I think typically, for me, I just go back to goal setting theory in general. I think New Year's is this. There's this idea that the new year, new me type of ribbon that they can put on something that helps them out to figure out what they want to achieve in this next upcoming year. But at the end of the day, I do think it's about the specificity of the goal that they're setting for themselves. So the typical one you hear is like eat healthier, lose weight, something like that. But as you said, it's got to be what is healthier? Where are you at now? Establishing that baseline is important. I think it also has to become a priority. I think a lot. I mean, we all have the same 24 hours in a day. A lot of people say they don't have time to work out or something like that, and I think that's mostly because other people have different priorities that take over over just working out or being healthy or whatever it comes down to, whatever your resolution was. And maybe those priorities are more important, right? I don't have I don't have a family of my own. I'm not married. I don't have kids. So I would assume those things would take priority over working out, which would make sense to me. So I would assume that, and those sound like normal things that people should prioritize over more of their health, right? You have a responsibility as a family member to provide for your family. And so that would make sense to me that maybe from time to time that health goal you had for yourself would get put behind, but without establishing concrete steps that you want to take to advance from that baseline you were at, I understand how all these goals, fizzle out by the end of January.
And I think another thing to lend to the prioritization of these goals, some people, like the new year, new me thing, automatically assume New Year is a great time to achieve a new goal, which the only reason people would even come to that conclusion is because it is in fact a new year and no other reason whatsoever. Where just because it's a new year does not mean an individual is ready to start working towards a new goal. And it's just an arbitrary thing that, for whatever reason, our culture and society has given so much credence to start something new.
I think the same thing happens with when it goes around and just getting into the summer months, like, right, beach bod, that type of thing. I think it's the same goal that these people have in mind. It's just given a different name at that point.
I agree. I was thinking about that, Diego, about the arbitrary nature of kind of New Year's. But I fully embrace that time. I love the positive energy around it. What I like most about it is how it's a natural reflection point because our calendar is changing, right? And I think that's why, despite it being this arbitrary time in the middle of winter that we decide that we're going to do these new things, I think a lot of that is spurred by the fact that we're sitting down, we're thinking about the year that has passed, we're thinking about maybe what went well, what didn't go well, and that's leading to some of these goals as well. And so in embracing that time and having it centralized around like this reflection point, what I would encourage people to do, and this ties into why I think a lot of them fail, is that we don't hit another reflection point until we get to the end of the calendar again, right? And so that's a very long gap to not do any more self-assessment, not do any reflection of like, hey, how are things going? So one thing that I do is I put in my phone quarterly like checkups to do my own self-assessment or reflection piece because I love that New Year's time and I want it to happen throughout the year. And so I schedule those in around the New Year's time to make sure that when that time comes around in like April, I get a ping on my phone to actually do this, right? And it's kind of what we teach with goal setting here at R2 Performance Center. It's just scheduling these times out. So if you have a goal to achieve something 3 weeks into January, like you're probably over it. You're tired, right? It's no longer connected to this reflection. It's no longer connected to where you are, what you're trying to do. It starts feeling arbitrary and it's very easy to toss aside. So I think putting in points, whether it is monthly, whether it is quarterly, even if it's a check-in halfway through the year of like, hey, remember that like super positive time when I decided to do these things? How's that going? What can I do? What can I change? I think that would help continue some of that momentum quite a bit.
Yeah, I'm not quite as, optimistic about the reasons why people decide to use New Year's, that time as a time to set new goals. I'm not so sure people take the time, as many people take the time out to actually reflect. Granted, I do think people are primed to do that. I think it's much more surface level than it is actual, like, did I achieve the goals I set out for myself? I would assume there are a lot of people who do that. However, I think the overwhelming majority would see the people who are actually doing that and who are posting on social media and then are like, you know what, I want to feel the same way they do too, without actually thinking of maybe as deeply as those first individuals. which I think could also lead to a much more lackadaisical approach towards the goal setting process, at least the beginning stages of it, which could lead to why you see that fizzle out happening a couple weeks after the actual new year, and why you don't see people even thinking about scheduling any progress checks along the way. Or maybe it's just people don't know the goal setting process in general, at least a way to go about achieving a goal. And that's where your local R2 Performance Center could, help you out with that particular strategy, dilemma, however you want to label it. But I think for once we're having a disagreement on this podcast, even if it's a really small one.
This may be hitting what all of you are saying to some degree, and I would like your feedback on it because I've been thinking about this, but I think goal setting to me is not about obligation, and maybe that's where this idea of I feel obliged to have to set a goal because it's January 1st. And if you're feeling obliged to do something, for example, my doctors told me to lose weight, let's say. So, okay, I'm going to go exercise. And it's all these vague things. But if you haven't adopted it as I'm going to have lifestyle changes, then to me, I start to categorize things like weight loss as more of tasks than an actual goal. Because I'm associating goals with things that I'm willing to change my life around, like I'm going to attribute it to things that are a part of me, versus these other arbitrary things that are going to eventually, like maybe I'm just detoxing, right? Like, oh, no chocolate for whatever. I just need to detox my body. That to me is different than a goal, which would be something that is, yes, I want to express myself through some behaviors I'm willing to do on a daily basis. I don't know if y'all have a different definition, but that's more or less what I've been starting to think through as far as goal setting versus just tasks that I have to get done.
I think for those who are very much high in conscientiousness like yourself, that would be a very productive and I guess useful way of approaching something as big as goals can be. They can be quite big. Breaking it down into tasks, or at least changing the perspective to view the steps necessary to achieve the goal as tasks. I think that's, I guess, a creative approach to keep someone on the right path, I guess, towards achieving that goal. And maybe it is just a seemingly simple, different take on what it means to actually go through the process of achieving a goal, which could be enough for a lot of people. But I think, in general, I think there's a lot of lack of information of how to actually go about setting a goal, how to actually go about identifying the process necessary to achieve a goal, which, again, is probably one of the several factors that plays into why New Year's resolutions tend to fizzle out pretty quickly. But that's just my pessimistic take on it.
Yeah, and I think part of the distinction that I'm making between goals and tasks would be I am more willing when it is, yes, I'm willing to have it be, and by it, I'm achieving goals that I'm willing to rearrange my life around, which also includes I'm okay when obstacles come up because I understand that that is a part of the process, and I also understand I'm willing to work to overcome said obstacles. Whereas if it's just a task and it gets hard and it's not really meaningful for me, I'm willing to just dispose of it, be like, I'm done with this, or dispose, rather than have to put in the effort because it really isn't attached to anything meaningful for me. It's just something, again, that if it is an obligation or a societal thing that, oh, everyone's doing it, I'm on board, this is just what we do, then you're more apt to just let it go by week 3 of January. Let it be.
And I think that, ties into like the self-determination theory, like part of it, right? There's a spectrum of what motivates us. And I think a lot of people are attached to these external things rather than attaching some inherent intrinsic motive, for lack of a better word, intrinsic motivation to want to actually better themselves and enjoy doing it for themselves. And I think that's why a lot of people fall off, because they have the motivation at first, but it's not placed in the right spot, so it fizzles out fairly quickly.
Do you think part of the reason why that motivation would fizzle out is because people generally have an idea that achieving a goal is not going to be smooth sailing the whole time, and are from the get-go discouraged by the anticipated obstacles that could possibly come up. Like, not even having specific identified obstacles, but the fact that obstacles will arise. Do you think that could have something to do with why? I already forgot my original question.
Like, they speak about this goal that they want to accomplish, and they're trying to speak it into existence, and they start attempting it, and then when the first obstacle comes, they're maybe not sure how to hurdle that obstacle that's in front of them, and so then maybe they skip a day off of it, and then that kind of kills their momentum a little bit, and it's all right, like, I missed a day, I can do it tomorrow, and then tomorrow comes around and maybe they do it again, but the frequency that they were sticking at that goal starts to fizzle out once they hit that first. They're not sure how to come back after that first obstacle as strong as it is.
I think part of the problem is because of our positions, we think about this so in detail and so specifically as experts. Because I was starting to think, I'm like, okay, so when people make resolutions, we usually say New Year's resolutions, right? Not New Year's goals. And so I think that lends to some of the things that you were talking about, Diego, of like not being specific, right? Because I feel like a resolution that we typically hear is like, I want to be healthier, right? They are these vague terms and they're not tied to goals. So part of it is understanding that, okay, well, if you want to be healthier, we have to set goals that will help get you to a healthier lifestyle is kind of what you're trying to say. And then, John, what I was hearing from you was like the fact that we have a sense of how we want to feel internally, right? So I want to have a healthier lifestyle, right? But then we start confusing that with these external goals of like, I'm going to drop 10 pounds and that means I'm going to feel healthier, which may or may not be true. It could be helpful to getting to that vague goal of being healthier, but it could also not, right? Chances are you're going to drop 10 pounds. You're probably going to feel fairly similar to where you were beginning. There's other steps that you need to take. So part of me also wonders, like, maybe people just set these resolutions because everyone is doing it. I think you mentioned that, Jess. Like, everyone's doing it, so I'm going to set a resolution. I'm going to feel kind of crappy because I didn't accomplish it, but oh well, it happens all the time. And then I'm not going to think about it for 11 months, and then you repeat that cycle next year. And maybe people truly don't care about it that much, that it's not that big of a struggle. But for the people that are really, really looking to make a change, I think it is encouraging to hear that there are specific things that you can do in order to enact that. You don't need January 1st to have that happen. You can do that on January 2nd. You can do it on January 19th. You can do it on June 1st. It doesn't matter, right? And then the other part that I would add is I just think it's very helpful to identify those process goals that help get to maybe a lifestyle that you want, get to a feeling that you want. So identifying, hey, if I'm a healthy individual, here are 3 things that I would probably do every day, and try to do those every day. And then they're more in your control. It's more achievable than maybe a goal that it's going to take 12 months and a month in, you've got obstacles, life gets in the way, and you can no longer feel like yourself chasing that goal.
And I like that point about the 3 little process goals that you just brought up, Marius. I think a lot of people think that the New Year's come around and they have to go just all out on right? They have to start running 6 miles a day and everything, and that's unrealistic to just go from the sitting on the couch to running 6 miles a day. Like, I feel like I'm fairly active. There's no way I can run 6 miles a day. It can be small steps. It can be taking a walk around the block after dinner, extend that to 2 blocks, walk a mile after dinner, finding little things that you can continually do, succeed at, and then up the ante a little bit more each time.
And I think that could help alleviate a lot of the negative consequences as a result of being solely outcome focused when it comes, especially to achieving goals. Granted, the whole reason people achieve goals is for the outcome to a large extent. But there's a process, and process goals need to be identified in order to even conceivably reach that goal in some meaningful way, I think. And that's where being more flexible, not necessarily being on the completely opposite side of the pendulum swing and only solely focused on process goals, but being able to be flexible enough so that you can intertwine, I guess for lack of a better word, the process goals to help achieve the ultimate outcome that is wanted or desired. And I don't know, maybe people just don't realize that's a thing, or it's not communicated in a way that is widespread enough. Hence why we exist as a industry profession.
I was gonna say though, like you mentioned, people are chasing these outcome goals, but I would dig deeper with those people and be like, what does this outcome goal say about you? You know, why do you want that? Because if I think, you know, my goal is to have $2,000 saved by the end of the year, it's like, why? Well, that will make me feel like a financially successful person. And then dig into that of like, why is that important? And then break that down. Okay, so a financially successful person, what are those 3 things that you're going to do every day? And then you're giving yourself an opportunity to feel that every single day, right? If they're truly steps that you can do on a daily basis. And so I think you can reverse engineer that a little bit of like, if there is a specific outcome goal, I'm not discouraging that. I think it's great to chase that, but having that understanding of like, well, it's because I want to feel this way, right? If I want to run a marathon in 2021, that makes me feel like a physically fit person, or it makes me feel like a mentally tough person. And then while you're going after that goal, you can also set these process goals of like, okay, let's try to act like a mentally tough person every day. And so, yeah, we're definitely not discouraging those outcome goals. I think they're great. But I would also dig deeper of like, what is it that you want to feel? What does that outcome goal make you feel like? What's that you're chasing? Identifying that and then breaking it down further from there.
And as you dig deeper, conveniently enough, you get more specific. And as you get more specific, you're able to get a clearer idea of whenever you achieve any of those sub-process goals on the way to achieving your ultimate end goal. And that's where you can start feeling that, what it means to be, in this example, a financially, I guess, responsible person more and more often, because you're achieving all these smaller goals on the way towards, whatever it's saving $2,000 by the end of the year. And that comes, and one of the main components of that is being more specific and digging deeper, which those two seemingly go hand in hand to me, at least. So we have ended any reason for anyone to ever not fail their New Year's resolution. Quadruple negatives, I'm pretty sure.
Nail your New Year's resolutions. You can do it.
Absolutely. No, I think the last thing that I was going to say was the all or nothing mentality along that way of, so Marius, you're discussing these even 3 things. So even if I got 2 out of the 3 today, that's a win. Even if I got 1, or if I got none, at least I know tomorrow, okay, I'm going to scrap today. Today wasn't who I want it to be, but tomorrow I could pick right back up. I know where I can go. And this idea of we cave so quickly because we feel like a failure after just very minimal, either like we've slowed our progress or we've taken a couple steps back, or we missed a day or missed a week. Doesn't need to be like we throw everything out, but rather just recognizing, okay, that wasn't the day that I anticipated, but here we go for tomorrow. And just being cognizant of the fact that it doesn't need to be so black or white in goal setting.
And I think something else to point out is like, yeah, even if you have to scrap a day, those feelings that come along with that might not be the most pleasant, and they might be pretty intense. And in those moments, it can be very hard to realize, like, yes, I don't have to stop achieving my goal just because of having to scrap this day. But in the moment, it's very, very hard to move around past that, and maybe that's where taking some time out, maybe trying to be more objective, as hard as that can be, would be valuable for this particular instance of trying to achieve a New Year's resolution.
And really, that might go back to Marius's point of those check-ins. It might be a great opportunity to check in. Maybe what you're doing now has to evolve. Maybe I can ramp things up. Maybe I need to go backwards. Or maybe I just need a recovery day. Sometimes your body knows what it needs, and it's just shutting you down for whatever reason to recover, and then you just get back at it. So I think there's plenty of opportunities, even if you miss that day, to still make it meaningful for you.
Yeah, no matter what part of the process, always things you can do to help make the next day easier or better, what have you. See, there's the optimistic side. There you go. All right, well, we hope you've enjoyed our discussion today. With that said, we hope you have a good old time out wherever you're at. And don't forget, we're not only on YouTube anymore, we are also on 6 other platforms, which include Spotify, Google Podcasts, Breaker, and I forget some other ones. Radio Play, I think is what it's called. But it's, yeah, lost sponsorship. But we have direct links to all those different platforms on our Anchor FM link, which will definitely be posted along with this episode. So if you just click that, then you'll find direct links to all the other platforms, so that way you can listen to us on your preferred platform, whether it be YouTube or those other 6 that I cannot completely name at this moment. Anyway, with that said, bye!
Bye. Bye.